Today I'm going to follow up on an earlier video that I did where I was talking about reducing risk and also increasing returns in crypto investing with respect to DeFi. I'm going to explain a little bit about how staking works, about where staking returns come from, about where's their Ponzi schemes, where's they're not. Give you a little bit of an understanding in that regard, because I had some people's comments where they're saying like, okay, great, you can get these great returns. Like, where are these returns coming from? So I'm going to go through that in this video and explain it to you. So for those of you who are new here, I'm Michael from Offshore Citizen. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Check it out. If you don't like it, please tell me why in the comments. And we help people with international structuring, so where to go, how to structure your life or your business to pay lower taxes, save on payment processing, and protect your assets, and bank internationally, and all these kinds of things, both in terms of the strategy as well as helping you out with the implementation. So if you're interested at all in that subject, please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Really appreciate your support. And yeah, let's go on to this subject. So what I'm going to talk about here is specifically, the term staking is used quite broadly and applied to a lot of different projects that some of them, it's kind of nonsense, okay? I'm going to start by giving you kind of some background explanation of how blockchain works, how the security of networks works, why it is that there are staking rewards, therefore what opportunity that creates for you to earn some cash flow on your crypto. As a result, how that basically decreases your risk and increases your return. And a lot of people should probably be doing that. So let's start by zooming out, and my explanation here is going to be a little bit rough. I'm going to kind of butcher some of the language for you, in part just to try and make it comprehensible. So I hope that works out for you. So let's just start with the basic idea of like, what is a blockchain? What is decentralized ledger technology, okay? Which kind of runs most of these systems. So if you just think about a ledger, it's basically like a spreadsheet, right? And each line is a separate transaction, okay? If you get into something like Ethereum and you've got computation, smart contracts, it gets a little bit more complicated. But at a basic level, we have a ledger with various different transactions taking place, right? Cool. Okay. Now, let's say that from there, you could say, well, a bank has that, right? You could have that on your computer. But it's much, much, much safer when you're talking about something like Bitcoin, something like blockchain. And one of the big reasons for this is because what's to prevent somebody from hacking the bank? Now, of course, they have security systems. It's probably 256-bit encrypted and all this kind of thing. But that being said, somebody could, in theory, go in and they could change the ledger, right? Now, in blockchain, it's virtually impossible. It's extremely difficult to do that. And the reason for this is that ledger is distributed across many different machines, okay? Or decentralized across many different machines. Meaning that everybody has a copy of the same ledger, okay? There might be 1,000 nodes, 10,000 nodes around the world. And so anytime a new transaction is added to that, it's basically computed that, hey, listen, does it match based on the previous transactions? And that's going to get broadcast to the network. And the network, each of the other nodes are going to check and they're going to say, hey, does that match? And so if you tried to change something in it earlier, it's not going to match, and they're going to reject that. And because there's all of these different players, no one really has an incentive to let a bad transaction go through because it screws up the whole network, and nobody has a big incentive to try and push through their own transactions because it's going to get rejected anyway, okay? So that's the basic concept. Now, what you end up with is basically it's all these like validator nodes, okay? All these nodes that are validating transactions, okay? So a node is just like a computer, right? Or a group of computers, whatever. Now, the whole point is that what if there's a disagreement, right? There's these things called consensus algorithms, and there's many different consensus algorithms. They work differently, so I'm kind of overly simplifying this here. But basically, they have a way between them to figure out what is, we're going to agree on, hey, this is a valid transaction, or this is a valid block, this is not, okay? So how that happens, loosely speaking, is a voting mechanism, all right? And the voting mechanism because it's a voting mechanism, you can have something we call a 51% attack, okay? What is this? This is basically where somebody gets control of 51% of the votes, and then they can vote it in the direction that they want, right? And they can kind of screw this up. They can do things like double spends and all sorts of fancy things that you don't want happening because they would violate the integrity of the overall system, okay? Okay, so how does that work? Well, because these are all pseudo-anonymous, or they're typically pseudo-anonymous, you don't know who they are, and you don't want to know who they are. So what is to stop somebody from going and simply starting up, 1 million accounts, getting 1 million votes, and suddenly voting, and being able to turn things the way they want, right? It would benefit them. Certainly, there's some game theory around this, and we'll get into that in a second. But that being said, the big issue is they could do that if there's what we call the nothing at stake problem, okay? Meaning that it's virtually free to produce more users, more votes, et cetera, then you would do that. So to overcome this problem, Bitcoin used proof of work, Ethereum uses proof of work, Ethereum 2.0 is proof of stake, Cardano is proof of stake. The move is generally towards proof of stake as opposed to proof of work, okay? So how did it work in proof of work? In order to be a validator, in order to basically have a vote in the network, you needed to have computers, GPUs and ASICs typically, that would be crunching these complex cryptographic problems, and it costs electricity. So there's a real capital expense and a real operational expense in order to do that. And so you can't just do 1 million votes because you'd need to scale up your expense 1 million times, right? And what does that do? It means that your economic incentive to do that doesn't make sense if you can't overwhelm the system, right? In other words, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, there's a relationship that you could see between, hey, what's the value that I can exploit from the network by having a 51% attack versus what is the cost? And there's a balance that needs to be maintained here, right? Okay, so in turn for doing that, so these validators basically secure the network, okay? They make sure that the network is run properly and they process the transactions. And for doing that, they get fees, okay? To give you some idea, the validator, or the node operators for Ethereum made, I think it was $1.9 billion just in transaction fees in February alone, okay? That's a lot of money that's paid out for this. In addition to that, they're paid what are called block rewards. So basically, every time a new block is produced, there's a certain reward that comes with it, which in Bitcoin, it would be based on, it's like Bitcoin or it's Ethereum, whatever it is that is being produced, okay? And so the people who are running these nodes get paid basically in these rewards. And so you have this, it's a disinflationary system, but there's a small amount of inflation within the overall supply, okay? So, and that's where the halvings come in, is they cut those block rewards down in half every 4 years in Bitcoin, okay? So, all right, what does that mean? This means that essentially you can come along and you can say, okay, I have a strong belief that this network is safe, but in order for it to be safe, there has to be this network of providers, and of course those people have to get paid, and so the way that they're getting paid is there's these block rewards that are being paid as well as they're getting pieces of the transactions, okay? Fair enough. But the problem with that is you need these computers, which are expensive. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that could be a concern. Governments can find them and shut them down and things like this. You have to burn electricity. That's very expensive. It's, needlessly wasteful, et cetera. And so the alternative to that is proof of stake, okay? So proof of stake is where instead of doing proof of work where you have to burn electricity, instead you have to buy tokens. And you have to stake those tokens, where basically you lock them up, and when they're locked up, that allows you to have votes proportional, essentially, to the amount of stake that you have, okay? And so all these node operators want to earn the block rewards that come from the network, and in order to do that, they have to stake their tokens, and they get paid. And there's two things that happen. One is they get, again, those rewards from the network, and number two, they get a piece of their transactions. So when you contribute your tokens into a staking pool, that's what you're getting, right? Where's the money coming from? The money is coming from, there are rewards paid out for keeping the network secure, right? And those really are proportional to the value of the network as set by the market, right? In other words, if the price of Bitcoin doubles, well then the value of those block rewards has just doubled, right? At the same time, if there's a lot more transactions, then the transaction fees, like the gas fees on Ethereum, can go up, and there's more rewards paid out in that regard. And this basically should equal some sort of over time, it should kind of equalize, right? Where you're making a reasonable rate of return, but not a crazy rate of return, right? In other words, if the prices are spiking, if the prices go up a lot, the rewards are going up a lot, which means that more people are going to mine or more people are going to stake, which means that because that reward is distributed between the people who are staking or mining, then those rewards are going to go down. Okay. However, what this of course means is that if you're one of the early ones, and especially if you're in a situation where there's a big upswing in the price, the rewards that you can be earning can be huge compared to like a typical reward off of, say, investing your money in the stock market or lending or something like this, right? So that's how staking works. That's how staking rewards work, is that people are putting up their tokens to stake them, to say, hey, listen, I'm giving a vote, and it has a cost to me, right? There's like, I had to buy those tokens in order to put them there. It's great because I get them back. That's useful, and there's some reasons why over long term that creates a certain efficiency. So this is part of why proof of stake is more efficient in the long run than mining is, or proof of work, sorry. And you can go and Vitalik on vitalik.ca has a good article on this that he's written. Anyway, the whole point is, yeah, this is what's happening. That's where the returns are coming from. In that situation, that's not a Ponzi scheme or anything like that. It's just a question of the supply and demand for the network. What does it cost to process that transaction? If there's a lot of demand and then those transactions are paying a lot, and if there's few people staking, that's divided between fewer participants. Therefore, the rewards will be higher. If the block rewards they're going to be what they are, but they're divided by fewer people, then they're going to be higher, right? As the price of the tokens goes up, that is worth more. And in the long term, those things will level themselves out, right? You're probably going to get, 8% return, something that's fair for the market. But in the short run, when it's something new, people aren't all on it, they aren't aware of it, it's a little bit complicated, etc. Those returns can be really good. And so that's where staking rewards come from. And yeah, I hope that helps. I hope it gives you a good explanation. If you have questions about it, put it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And again, if you would like help, let me know. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Appreciate your support. If you like the video, share it with friends. And I'm going to see you guys on the next video.